What's up, Subi Nation? DJ here with Subi Bros, and today we're doing an overview and install of our newest rear fog light. This is the F1 LED bar style rear fog light. It works as a running light and also a brake light. It also has the optional strobe feature, which you can turn on and off inside the car. So for the track days, you can turn the strobe on, and for driving on the street, you can turn it off, all from the driver's seat, which we'll show you in a demonstration later in the video. But we're gonna go ahead and get started on installing this. It's of course gonna go in the cutout here in the rear bumper. And we also have a variety of lens and color options, so be sure to check them out on subibros.com. There will be a link in the description, but let's go ahead and get started. To get started on the install, the first thing we're gonna do is remove this insert piece here. We're gonna gain access from the back side of the bumper. To get started, we're gonna remove these two clips on the bottom side of the bumper here. So here's where we removed our first clip. You can see that on the even deeper on the back side of the bumper, there is an additional clip on each side. Then we'll remove the other side. All right, you guys, this is a really tight squeeze here, so I'm gonna do my best to show you, but this is the back side of the insert for the rear fog light. So now that we've removed the four clips, it's loose enough to be able to pull back to see what you're doing. So the insert is held on by two clips on the bottom edge. What you're gonna do is you're just going to push those clips up and push the insert towards the back of the car, and it'll pop out like that. Since that was a little tight, I wanted to show you another point of view. So you can see the hole on the bottom here and here. That's where the bottom tabs, you can see here, are held in place. So these tabs are just little pins that we pushed on, we just pushed up on. You know, it's oriented like this when it's in there. So you push up on those tabs and then push out and it'll pop out. We're gonna prep for installing the rear bracket for the fog light. So what we need to do is install the provided clip nut here onto the right side of this opening where the hole is. The goal is to align the opening of the nut with the hole. You want to make sure that the threaded portion is pointing towards the inside. So we'll go ahead and install that. Right, and it just slides on in like that. We're now going to insert and position the rear bracket. So you guys can see that you have the little legs on the bottom here that are pressing up against the plastic. You also want to make sure that the bracket is sitting on the outside of the plastic housing of the bumper. The two sides should be on the outside of the plastic portion. Now for the next part, we are going to take our bolt here and we're going to insert it on the right side. But we're only gonna thread it in a tiny bit so that it's flush with the end of the nut here. And the reason why is because we need to leave clearance to insert the rear fog light. If it's sticking out too far, it won't go in. All right, so the bolt is threaded in just enough to be flush with the nut there. This is going to make your life a lot easier when installing the rear fog light. So for the next portion, we're going to insert our fog light into the opening. You can see that there's two holes in the back of the bracket. Those are going to mount your two 10mm bolts through, and it's going to go into the back of this rear fog light. So we'll stick the wire on the bottom and we'll insert the light there. And we'll go to the back side to put the 10mm bolts in. All right, so we're gonna put our first bolt in. We're gonna go ahead and also now we're gonna tighten down the side of the bracket here as well. Then we'll insert our second bolt. And finally, we're going to put our push pin clip on the side of the bracket here. All right, guys, we're gonna snug down the 3 10mm bolts here. We're now gonna start the wiring portion of the install. So first we're gonna remove the trunk liner here. We're now gonna remove this portion of the interior trim of the trunk. So we're going to take out these clips here on the side, which are just simple push pin style. You can use a flathead. All right, we've got our 3 clips out. The next thing we're gonna do is just pull straight up. You can see here that there's just 4 clips holding this trim piece in. All right, now that we have the area all prepped, we're going to begin to remove the passenger side trunk liner on the side here. We're gonna start by taking off this clip first. What you wanna do is sandwich, we're using the interior panel tool here. You sandwich it between the base and the head of the clip, and then it just comes out like that. You can see that there's the base and the head. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and remove this one here. We're also gonna move this piece of foam out of the way. All right, and we have one more clip up here on the top of the trunk liner. Now we'll go ahead and pull back the liner. For the next step, we're going to be installing the plug and play harness. So to do that, we're just going to push on the top tab of the harness going into the tail light and pull it out. Then we're going to insert the plug and play harness to the tail light. And then we're going to plug the original connection into the other side of the plug and play harness. We now have our extension harness that plugs between the plug and play harness and the rear fog light. So we're going to plug in the end with the wires showing like this. And we're going to begin routing the wires down to the rear fog light. All right, we're going to take the end of the harness and we're going to route it behind this frame piece. Then once we have it pulled through, we're going to remove this body plug, which is where the wires will go through, and we'll recover it on the underside of the car. So you just push it through like that. So now we need to open the body plug to allow the wires to run through it. So I'm using a drill bit here. I have a 5/16, and I'm going to use it to basically cut open a hole in the plug. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a stab. All right, guys, it's not the cleanest hole ever, but it'll work. We're going to seal it with silicone later, so I'm not too concerned about that, but we'll go ahead and feed the wire through it. All right, we're going to take our body plug here and make sure it's facing the correct way. Which is the larger flap is facing this way as you feed the wire through it. So we're going to pull the wire through. And we're going to feed it down through the opening that we made. And then once we get close to the end, we're gonna tuck the body plug through the hole because we're gonna push it back in through the back side to actually seal it off here. We're now gonna push the body plug through on the back side to seal it up properly. All right, guys, we have pushed the wires up through the top of the bracket. This will help keep the wires out of any weather, water, or anything else that might splash up. So we're gonna grab our wire now and the harness, and we're going to connect them together. All right, you can see that they're connected, and we're gonna pull the slack that is left over down here up back through the cabin. All right, guys, we're gonna just pull our extra slack through from underneath the car, carefully not to pull the plug back out. Now we're gonna pull the wire back through to get that extra slack over here. Then we're just gonna bundle the wire back up. Make sure you leave enough slack so that nothing is gonna sit back here tight. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the provided zip tie that came with our kit. And we're going to zip tie off this extra wire. And we'll go ahead and clip that. Now we have the wiring all tucked away nicely. Now would be a great time to test your rear fog light to make sure that everything's working before we button it up. We're now going to apply the black silicone to the opening of the body plug, just to make sure that no water or anything else gets into the trunk from the outside. Just using any sort of silicone sealant is a good idea. All right, we're gonna start putting this back. Make sure that the felt of the trunk liner goes on the correct side of the weather stripping. Then we'll go ahead and put our clips back from the liner here. We'll put our second clip in. All right, and our third and final clip on the upper portion of the trunk liner here. We'll put our foam piece back. We're gonna reinstall this trim piece next. The most important thing to do here is you wanna pay attention to these 4 white clips and the clips on the inside of this trim piece, because if you don't line them up correctly, it's pretty easy to bend them over and cause damage to the trim piece. So we'll go ahead and make sure that ours are lined up here. All right, and then you just push down, and after it pops in, you'll want to pull the weather strip over the top of the plastic piece. So we have all 4 popped in now. All right, we've got the weather stripping on the correct size. Now we're going to put the 3 clips back in. All right, now we're going to reinstall our trunk liner. One of the best features about our F1 LED bar style light and our V2 F1 light is the ability to turn the strobe function off from the driver's seat. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. It's pretty simple. When you have the car on, what you would want to do is you push and hold the brake. And as you're holding it, you're going to switch the headlight position, starting at the off position to the on position, and then back off. You're going to go through that 3 times, and it has to be pretty quick, otherwise it won't register. So with your foot on the brake, you'll just go on, off, on, off, on, off. If you can either have a friend help, or if you're backed up against a wall, you can see whether the strobe's turned off or not behind you. But you got to make sure to do it pretty quickly, otherwise it won't necessarily work. And then you can release the brake, of course. So again, that's brake down, starting in the off position, on, off, on, off, on, off. That concludes our overview and install of the Subaru F1 bar style LED rear fog light. If you'd like to purchase this, head on over to subibros.com. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and we'll see you next time.